The PPSh-41, Pistolet Pulemyat Shpagina, Russian, Shpagin machine pistol, is a Soviet submachine gun designed by Georgy Shpagin as a cheap, reliable, and simplified alternative to the PPD-40. Common nicknames are PPSh, Russian, from its three-letter prefix, and PPSh, Russian, meaning daddy. The PPSh is a magazine-fed selective fire submachine gun using an open bolt, blowback action. Made largely of stamped steel, it can be loaded with either a box or drum magazine and fires the 7.62 x 25 mm Tokarev pistol round. The PPSh saw extensive combat use during World War II and the Korean War. It was one of the major infantry weapons of the Soviet armed forces during World War II. Around 6 million PPSh-41s were manufactured. In the form of the Chinese Type 50, a licensed copy, it was still being used by the Viet Cong as late as 1970. According to the 2002 edition of the Encyclopedia of Weapons of World War II, the PPSh was still in use with irregular militaries. History. World War II. The impetus for the development of the PPSh came partly from the Winter War against Finland, where the Finnish army employed the Suomi KP-31 submachine gun as a highly effective tool for close-quarter fighting in forests and built-up urban areas. A submachine gun, the PPD-40, was subsequently rushed into mass production in 1940, but it was expensive to manufacture, both in terms of materials and labor, because it used numerous milled metal parts, particularly its receiver. Shpagin's main idea for cost reduction was to use metal stamping for the production of most parts. That concept was revolutionary in the Soviet Union at the time. Shpagin created a prototype PPSh in September 1940, which also featured a simple gas compensator designed to prevent the muzzle from rising during bursts. This improved shot grouping by about 70% relative to the PPD. The new weapon was produced in a network of factories in Moscow, with high-level local party members made directly responsible for meeting production targets. A few hundred weapons were produced in November 1941 and another 155,000 were made during the next 5 months. By spring 1942, the PPSh factories were producing roughly 3,000 units a day. Soviet production figures for 1942 indicate that almost 1.5 million units were produced. The PPSh-41 is a classic example of a design adapted for mass production. Other examples of such wartime design are the M3 submachine gun, MP40, PPS submachine gun, and the Sten. Its parts, excluding the barrel, could be produced by a relatively unskilled workforce with simple equipment available in an auto repair garage or tin shop, freeing more skilled workers for other tasks. The PPSh-41 uses 87 components compared to 95 for the PPD-40, and the PPSh could be manufactured with an estimated 5.6 machining hours, later revised to 7.3 hours, compared with 13.7 hours for the PPD. Barrel production was often simplified by using barrels for the 7.62 mm Mosin Nagant. The rifle barrel was cut in half and 2 PPSh barrels were made from it after machining the chamber for the 7.62 x 25 mm Tokarev cartridge. After the German army captured large numbers of the PPSh-41 during World War II, a program was instituted to convert the weapon to the standard German submachine gun cartridge 9 x 19 mm Parabellum. The Wehrmacht officially adopted the converted PPSh-41 as the MP41, R. Unconverted PPSh-41s were designated MP717, R, and supplied with 7.63 x 25 mm Mauser ammunition, which is dimensionally identical to 7.62 x 25 mm, but slightly less powerful. German-language manuals for the use of captured PPShs were printed and distributed in the Wehrmacht. As standard, each PPSh-41 came with 2 factory-fitted drum magazines that were matched to the weapon with marked serial numbers. If drum magazines were mixed and used with different serial-numbered PPSh-41, a loose fitting could result in poor retention and failure to feed. Drum magazines were superseded by a simpler PPS-42 box-type magazine holding 35 rounds, although an improved drum magazine made from 1 mm thick steel was also introduced in 1944. The PPS submachine gun, an even simpler submachine gun, was later introduced in Soviet service in 1943, although it did not replace the PPSh-41 during the war. The Soviet Union also experimented with the PPSh-41 in a close air support anti-personnel role, mounting dozens of the submachine guns in forward fuselage racks on the Tu-2Sh variant of the Tupolev Tu-2 bomber. More than 5 million PPSh submachine guns were produced by the end of the war. The Soviets would often equip platoons and sometimes entire companies with the weapon, giving them excellent short-range firepower. Thousands more were dropped behind enemy lines in order to equip Soviet partisans to disrupt German supply lines and communications. Korean War. After the Second World War, the PPSh was supplied in large quantities to Soviet client states and communist guerrilla forces. The Korean People's Army, KPA, and the Chinese People's Volunteer Army, PVA, fighting in Korea received massive numbers of the PPSh-41, in addition to the North Korean Type 49 and the Chinese Type 50, which were licensed copies of the PPSh-41 with small mechanical revisions. The weapon was widely used during the Korean War. Though relatively inaccurate, the Chinese PPSh has a high rate of fire and was well suited to the close-range firefights that typically occurred in that conflict, especially at night. United Nations forces in defensive outposts or on patrol often had trouble returning a sufficient volume of fire when attacked by companies of infantry armed with the PPSh. Some U.S. infantry officers ranked the PPSh as the best combat weapon of the war. While lacking the accuracy of the US M1 Garand and M1 carbine, it provided more firepower at short distances. As infantry captain, later General, Hal Moore, stated, on full automatic it sprayed a lot of bullets and most of the killing in Korea was done at very close ranges and it was done quickly, a matter of who responded faster. In situations like that it outclassed and outgunned what we had. A close-in patrol fight was over very quickly and usually we lost because of it. Other U.S. servicemen, however, felt that their M2 carbines were superior to the PPSh-41 at the typical engagement range of 100–150 meters. Features. The PPSh-41 fires the standard Soviet pistol and submachine gun cartridge, the 7.62 x 25 mm, Tokarev. Weighing approximately 12 pounds, 5.45 kilograms, with a loaded 71-round drum and 9.5 pounds, 4.32 kilograms, with a loaded 35-round box magazine, the PPSh is capable of a rate of about 1,000 rounds per minute, a very high rate of fire in comparison to most other military submachine guns of World War II. It is a durable, low-maintenance weapon made of low-cost, easily obtained components, primarily stamped sheet metal and wood. The final production PPShs have top ejection and an L-type rear sight that can be adjusted for ranges of 100 and 200 meters. A crude compensator is built into the barrel jacket, intended to reduce muzzle climb during automatic fire. The compensator was moderately successful in this respect, but it greatly increased the muzzle flash and report of the weapon. The PPSh also has a hinged receiver to facilitate field stripping and cleaning the weapon. A chrome-lined bore enables the PPSh to withstand both corrosive ammunition and long intervals between cleaning. No forward grip or forearm was provided, and the operator generally has to grasp the weapon behind the drum magazine with the supporting hand, or else hold the lower edge of the drum magazine. Though 35-round curved box magazines were available from 1942, the average Soviet infantryman in World War II carried the PPSh with the original 71-round drum magazine. The PPSh drum magazine holds 71 rounds. In practice, misfiring is likely to occur with more than about 65. In addition to feed issues, the drum magazine is slower and more complicated to load with ammunition than the later 35-round box magazine that increasingly supplemented the drum after 1942. While holding fewer rounds, the box magazine does have the advantage of providing a superior hold for the supporting hand. Although the PPSh is equipped with a sliding bolt safety, the weapon's open bolt design still presents a risk of accidental discharge if the gun is dropped on a hard surface. Users: Albania, Afghanistan, formerly in service with the Afghan army in the 1980s. Also used by various self-defense groups. Bulgaria, Croatia, Cuba, China, made unlicensed copies under the designation Type 50. Czechoslovakia, used during and after World War II until succeeded by the VZ.58. Seen in the film Kralsumovi as used by the Czechoslovakian border guards defending the Iron Curtain. East Germany, used by the East German Grenztruppen and became an unofficial symbol of the force. Designated MPI-41 in DDR service, the PPSh-41 was gradually replaced by the AK-47 beginning in 1960. Finland, used captured examples. Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, used by the PEG in the Guinea-Bissau War of Independence. Hungary, captured and reissued PPSh-41s in the early 1940s. Produced a local version in the early 1950s called the 7.62mm Jepistoli 48. Minta, or simply 48M. Iraq, Indonesia, Iran, produced a local version in the 1940s with a tangent rear sight. Kurdistan, Laos, Nazi Germany, used captured guns, and also converted some to 9x19mm Luger under the designation MP41R. North Korea, made licensed copies under the designation Type 49. Poland, produced a local version, identical to late production Soviet design. Made under license as the 7.62mm PMWZ.41 by Luchnik Arms Factory. It was used by the 1st Polish Army. Romania, captured and reissued PPSh-41 submachine guns during 1941 to 1944. Made licensed copies during the 1950s at Kujar Arms Plant under the designation PMPPMD 1952. Sierra Leone, South Korea, captured from North Korean and Chinese during Korean War. Soviet Union, in service with the Soviet Army in 1942. Syria, Vietnam, North Vietnam, the Viet Cong used the K-50M license-built copy during the Vietnam War. Yugoslavia, locally produced a variant known as the M49 submachine gun. Tanzania, Zimbabwe. Variants: Type 50, a Chinese-made version of the PPSh-41. Unlike its Soviet counterpart, it only accepts column-type box magazines. Type 49, a North Korean-made version of the PPSh-41. This model only accepts drum-based magazines. K-50M, a Vietnamese-made submachine gun based on the Type 50s supplied by China during the Vietnam War. Produced between 1958 and 1964. The chief difference is that the cooling sleeve of the K-50 was truncated to 3 inches, 76 mm, and a foresight based on that of the French Mat 49 was attached to the front of the barrel. Modifications include the addition of a pistol grip, a steel wire made stock and the shortened barrel. The changes resulted in a weight of 3.4 kg, 7.5 pounds, making K-50M lighter than the PPSh-41 by 500 grams, 1.1 pounds. The weapon uses a 35-round stick magazine, but the 71-round drum magazine can be used if the stock is fully retracted. MP41, RA captured PPSh-41 converted to 9x19mm parabellum caliber for use by German forces. MP717, RA captured, unconverted PPSh-41 placed in German service and supplied with 7.63x25mm Mauser ammunition. M49, a Yugoslavian-produced variant of the PPSh-41 design, though it differs in several important ways. PPS-50, a semi-automatic manufactured by Piata. A non-restricted firearm in .22 LR ammunition. The box magazine holds 30 and the drum magazine holds 50. It is cosmetically similar to the PPSh-41, although the two share no other features. VPO-135, a semi-automatic version of the PPSh 41 from Russia. Ltd PPSh 41, a semi-automatic only clone of the PPSh 41. This variant with its fixed wooden stock is manufactured by Luxembourg Defense Technology for the civilian European sport shooting market. SKL 41, a semi-automatic version of the PPSh 41 which became available on the German market in 2008. This version is converted to fire the 9x19mm Parabellum cartridge. Aside from replicas of its original magazines, it also accepts MP40 magazines.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.